In a quiet town, there was a student named Brandon. Brandon was shy and often felt lonely. Although he was smart, he had trouble talking to his classmates. He often sat alone during lunch, watching others laugh and talk. Inside, he felt a heavy weight. Stress and fear held him back from joining them. Brandon wanted to change, but he did not know how. One day, while sitting in his room, he looked around and saw his school books piled on a desk. He realized he needed to take control of his life and emotions. Brandon thought about how he often felt sad and anxious. He wanted to understand why. He went to the library and found a book about emotional intelligence. The book explained how to identify and understand emotions. It talked about things like self-awareness and how to set strong personal boundaries. Brandon felt excited and hopeful. He checked out the book and went home, ready to learn. As Brandon read, he found stories about other people who faced similar challenges. They also learned to manage their emotions. This made him feel less alone. The next day, Brandon was determined to try. He started practicing self-reflection. He would sit quietly for a few minutes each day to think about his feelings. Why did he feel stressed before talking to others? Why did he feel shy in class? This exercise gave him a clearer picture. He began to understand that his fear was really about what others thought of him. By recognizing his feelings, Brandon could better manage them. Brandon also learned about self-regulation from his reading. This meant controlling his emotions before they controlled him. In stressful moments, like speaking in class, he practiced deep breathing. He counted to 5 and took long, slow breaths. This helped calm his nerves and prepared him to speak. He found the more he did this, the easier it became. Slowly, Brandon started to speak more in class. While learning, Brandon met a friend named Maya in the library. Maya loved to read too and was interested in the same topics. They talked about their challenges and fears. Maya also felt shy, and their connection grew. They helped each other. Brandon felt a sense of joy when they studied together. Having a friend made his journey easier. They shared ideas, and their discussions made them both stronger. As weeks went by, Brandon noticed more changes. He began to set boundaries with others. He learned it was okay to say no when he needed time alone. If someone wanted to make him feel bad, he remembered to stand up for himself. Brandon found strength in his growing self-awareness. He knew this was just the beginning of his journey. His goal was to become more resilient and confident. As Brandon continued to explore emotional intelligence, he felt happier. He understood that change takes time, but he was eager to learn and grow. The shadows of loneliness and stress began to lift, replaced by light and hope. Unlike before, he felt empowered to take control of his emotions. He knew now that he was not alone, and through understanding, he could create a brighter future. As time passed, Brandon began to feel stronger and more confident in his ability to manage his emotions. However, one day, a challenging event made him rethink everything. During a group project in class, Brandon was paired with some classmates he did not know well. At first, he felt excited to work with them. He wanted to share ideas and contribute. But when the project started, things went wrong. His group mates did not listen to him. They talked over him and made jokes. His heart raced, and he felt panic. Brandon felt trapped again, like when he did not know how to speak up. He remembered his goal to become more confident and to express his thoughts clearly. However, the louder voices of his classmates made it hard for him to find his own. The frustration grew inside him. He wanted to say something, but he felt small and unheard. It was hard for him to manage his feelings of anger and sadness. The pressure to fit in seemed too strong. That day, Brandon left school feeling defeated. He spent the afternoon sitting on his bed, staring into space. He recalled the lesson about emotional intelligence. He understood that frustration could lead to progress if he recognized it. This was an important turning point for him. Instead of ignoring his feelings, he decided to confront them. Brandon picked up his emotional intelligence book and began to read. He found a chapter about conflict and the need to speak up. It said that avoiding conflict only made things worse. Brandon realized something had to change. He couldn't keep letting fear govern his actions. The next school day, he planned to speak to his group again. He felt nervous, but he remembered the strength he found in learning. When he sat down with his project mates, he took a deep breath and began to speak. "I have some ideas I think are good," he said. He noticed that the room grew quiet as they turned to listen. Though his voice shook at first, he continued. He shared ideas clearly and simply. He was surprised when they began to accept his input. Slowly, he felt a spark of confidence. They offered suggestions and built on his ideas. Encouraged by this progress, Brandon realized that speaking out made a difference. He found that facing these situations directly was a better way to manage conflict. After class, Brandon felt lighter. He understood that expressing himself took practice. It was okay to feel stress. Everyone felt it sometimes. What mattered was how he reacted to those feelings. This experience helped him see that he had control over his emotional journey. Instead of being silent and passive, he could take active steps to share his thoughts and feelings. With this newfound confidence, Brandon made a promise to himself. He would face situations that made him afraid and speak out more often. Each time he did, he would grow and learn. His feelings would not control him. He would control them. This change gave him hope. Brandon felt ready to embrace new challenges and grow in ways he never thought possible. His journey to emotional intelligence was only just beginning, but he was excited about what lay ahead. After that turning point in class, Brandon became more determined than ever to understand his emotions. He knew he had to take action to become the confident person he wanted to be. That week, he spent every free moment studying about emotional intelligence. He visited the library again and found more books that seemed helpful. Each book was full of ideas about how to understand and control feelings. One book talked about self-awareness. This was the first step to managing emotions effectively. Self-awareness means knowing what you feel and why you feel it. Brandon realized he had often ignored his feelings instead of facing them. For the first time, he started to write in a journal. He set aside a few minutes each day to express his thoughts and emotions. Writing made it easier to understand what was happening inside him. Each page became a little window into his heart and mind. He wrote about his day and what made him feel stressed or happy. He noticed patterns in his emotions. For example, he felt nervous before presentations, but joy when he helped others. This knowledge made him hopeful. With each entry, Brandon began to recognize how some situations triggered strong emotions. He felt proud of himself for taking the time to explore his feelings. One Saturday, Brandon found a workshop that focused on emotional intelligence skills. He asked his parents if he could attend. They said yes, happy to support his journey. At the workshop, he met other people who shared their experiences. They talked about their struggles and what they did to overcome them. Brandon listened carefully, feeling more connected to others. Their stories helped him realize he was not alone in his feelings or challenges. During the sessions, the instructor introduced different ideas about self-regulation. This meant controlling big emotions so they do not take over. Brandon learned breathing techniques that calmed the mind. One exercise was to take deep breaths and count slowly to 5. He practiced these techniques during the workshop. They made him feel grounded and ready for anything. One of the important lessons was about setting boundaries. Brandon understood this was about knowing what was right for him. He learned that it was okay to say no if he felt overwhelmed. He could express his limits to friends and classmates. This idea filled him with newfound strength and control. It was empowering for Brandon to know he could take charge of situations. As the workshop came to an end, Brandon felt a spark of excitement. He had learned so much in just one day. He could see a brighter future for himself, a future where he was in control of his emotions. With every lesson, Brandon built more trust in his abilities. His emotional intelligence journey had really begun. The path ahead was full of new skills and fresh insights. Brandon left the workshop feeling hopeful and inspired. His heart was full of courage to keep working on himself. The journey would not be easy, but he knew he was strong enough to handle the ups and downs. He looked forward to sharing what he learned with his classmates and helping them recognize their own feelings. This experience felt like the start of something wonderful in his life, one where he could truly speak and be heard. After the workshop, Brandon felt more motivated to practice emotional management. He tried to use journaling and mindfulness techniques each day. However, he quickly found that it was not always easy. Some days, he sat down with his journal feeling lost for words. He wanted to express his emotions, but they felt jumbled inside him. He struggled to find the right phrases, and sometimes he just stared at the blank page. Instead of writing, he felt overwhelmed. Doubts crept into his mind. Would he really be able to change? Mindfulness was another challenge. Brandon began to practice deep breathing when he felt anxious at school. However, during stressful moments, remembering to breathe deeply was hard. Sitting quietly did not always work. There were times when his thoughts raced. At lunch, surrounded by chatter, focusing on his breath was almost impossible. Instead of relaxing, he felt even more stressed. This was frustrating. He wanted to feel better, but it seemed out of reach. One afternoon, after a tough day at school, Brandon came home upset. Classes that day were filled with big projects and discussions. He felt like his voice had been lost again, hidden beneath noise. He sat on his bed, feeling hopeless. What am I doing wrong, he wondered. It was tough to see real change. He began to question whether he could manage his emotions, even with all he learned about emotional intelligence. That evening, Brandon remembered the encouraging words from the workshop. The instructor had shared that growth takes time. Change does not happen instantly. With this reminder, he opened his journal again. He started to write about his struggle. Evening reflections became a little easier. He accepted that it was okay to have hard days. Through this acceptance, he began to understand that emotional intelligence was indeed a journey, not a destination. He wrote, "Today was tough." He wrote about his feelings of pressure during the day. He noted how much he wanted to express himself but felt unsure of how to do that. More importantly, he wrote something powerful. "I am learning, and that is enough." This awareness started to shift his perspective. With each entry, he grew curious instead of anxious. He began to ask himself questions. What would help next time? How can I be more confident? As the weeks passed, Brandon continued practicing mindfulness. He tried to set aside 5 minutes a day for focused breathing. At times, he still found it hard. Even so, he knew he was improving. Some moments lifted his spirits. When he noticed the sunlight through his window or heard a bird chirp outside, it made him smile. These small moments of happiness showed him that he was opening his heart. Yes, there were struggles, but he was not afraid to face them anymore. Each day was an adventure, with ups and downs that made him human. He learned to share his thoughts with Maya, who became a great source of support. They would talk about their emotions, challenges, and how best to face them. Sharing helped him feel lighter. Brandon realized that emotional intelligence was like a flower that needed time to bloom. It required patience, practice, and effort. He was on the path, no matter how rocky it felt sometimes. With each moment of self-reflection, each breath of mindfulness, he was creating the change he sought. The journey of understanding himself and managing his emotions was just unfolding, and he was excited to see where this path would take him next. As the school year continued, Brandon faced a major emotional challenge. His class had a big project due, and everyone needed to work together. This time, Brandon was chosen to lead the group. At first, he felt excited. It was a chance to practice what he had learned about emotional intelligence. However, as the project began, the excitement quickly turned into stress. One member of the group, Jake, often disagreed with Brandon's ideas. Jake was loud and confident. He liked to take charge and sometimes made the rest of the group feel small. As Brandon tried to present his thoughts, Jake would interrupt and say, "That won't work." Brandon's heart sank when he heard those words. He felt his confidence slipping away. During one group meeting, it became worse. Brandon suggested a plan that he had worked hard on. Jake dismissed it without thinking. "That idea is silly," he said loudly. The group quieted, and Brandon felt his face flush. Right then, a wave of hurt and frustration crashed over him, but he remembered his lessons. He knew this was the moment to apply his emotional intelligence skills. Keeping his hands steady, Brandon took a deep breath. He recognized that feeling hurt was normal, but he also understood the importance of self-regulation. Instead of letting anger take control, he focused on staying calm and collected. He decided to respond with empathy. With a clear voice, he spoke. "I know we all have different ideas, and that's good. I believe we can find a way to make my idea work with some changes." Brandon felt the weight lift slightly. His words surprised him. Instead of being angry, he was reaching out to help. Jake frowned and paused for a moment. The air was tense, but Brandon didn't back down. He turned to the other members of the group. He noticed they seemed uneasy, too. "What do you all think?" he asked them, feeling hope. Encouraging the opinion of others allowed them to chime in. One classmate, Mia, said, "I like parts of Brandon's idea, but maybe we can add more to it." Another group member nodded, adding, "Yes, let's work together." Brandon felt warmth grow in the room, and a spark of energy returned. Instead of a fight, the group was moving towards cooperation. Then Jake looked around, and for the first time, he considered the group's opinion. The tension began to fade as they brainstormed together. Brandon felt pride as they worked, finding a way to blend ideas. He listened carefully, showing real empathy towards his peers and validating their feelings. As the meeting progressed, Brandon's initial frustration turned into excitement. They were creating something together, and everyone felt included. Brandon felt doubt beginning to lift. This experience was proving what he had learned: emotional intelligence mattered. It helped him manage his feelings and guided him to communicate effectively. Through this challenge, Brandon realized how much he had grown. He didn't feel alone anymore. Instead, he saw the beauty in working as a team, valuing each other's ideas. In that moment, he understood that using emotional intelligence was not just about himself. It was about connecting with others, understanding their feelings, and coming together to create something meaningful. As the project came to life, Brandon felt a sense of hope and happiness. This challenge had become an integral part of his journey. Even when things felt difficult, he now knew he could face each situation with strength and confidence. As the group work continued, Brandon faced an even bigger challenge. Jake did not let go of his strong opinions. After some time, he loudly dismissed another one of Brandon's ideas. "That approach is boring. Let's do it my way instead." His words stung. Brandon felt his heart race, and a wave of sadness mixed with anger rushed through him. For a moment, he wanted to shout back or just give up. It felt like a heavy weight pressing down on his chest, and he thought about how easy it would be to walk away. But then, the lessons he had learned about emotional intelligence filled his mind. He took a deep breath and reminded himself to stay calm. This was a crucial moment to practice self-regulation. Brandon knew he had to control these rising emotions so they wouldn't overwhelm him. Instead of reacting in anger, he focused on finding his center. He closed his eyes briefly, feeling his breath move in and out slowly. It helped him clear his thoughts. When he opened his eyes, Brandon looked directly at Jake. He understood that communication needed to be strong now. Instead of criticizing Jake, he thought about what might be motivating him. Brandon realized that Jake was trying to show his leadership, but perhaps felt insecure, too. Practicing empathy was essential in this moment. Brandon decided to connect with Jake's feelings rather than push against them. "Jake, I see that you care a lot about this project," Brandon said, speaking clearly and calmly. "It's great that you want the best for our work." A hush fell over the group, and Brandon could sense everyone waiting for Jake's response. Brandon continued, "Let's find a way to blend our ideas. I want to make sure everyone feels heard." He hoped that speaking with respect might change things. Jake's expression shifted slightly. At first, his face was tense, but when he saw Brandon's sincere approach, the hardness began to soften. He took a moment, and for the first time, he listened. It was a small opening, but Brandon could feel it. The people around them nodded, sensing the heavy atmosphere begin to lift. At that moment, Brandon felt more secure in himself. He realized that it took courage to be vulnerable, but he did not want to lose sight of his goals. Through this exchange, Brandon recognized that good communication required both kindness and assertiveness. He needed to express his own ideas while validating Jake's emotions too. "I believe we can mix your idea with mine for a better solution," he added, keeping his voice steady. "What if we try both?" Proposing a plan that included efforts from everyone. This was not merely about winning. It was about teamwork. The group began discussing Brandon's suggestion, and slowly, voices joined together. They brainstormed solutions that combined viewpoints, building off one another's thoughts. Brandon felt relief wash over him. He could see that this situation was not just about him, but about the whole group forming unity. The challenge and pressure began fading, and he saw in everyone's eyes the spark of teamwork igniting. Not only did he succeed in asserting his thoughts, but he created space for cooperation, trust, respect, and hope in sharing with the group. As the group wrapped up the meeting, Brandon realized a powerful lesson. Emotional intelligence was not simply about feeling emotions, but about understanding them in his heart and mind. He had faced one of the darkest moments by using self-regulation and empathy, and together they had transformed challenges into opportunities for growth. In that space, calm had replaced chaos, bringing him one step closer to the new person he was becoming, ready to tackle whatever came next. As the discussions in the group continued, Brandon felt a new sense of clarity. Instead of just pushing forward, he started to realize how much he had grown. At this moment, he felt the strength in applying emotional intelligence. Each time he spoke, he noticed a soft confidence now guided him. During the project, they were all focused on communication, ideas, and tuning into one another's feelings. One afternoon, as the deadline for the project approached, Brandon faced another challenge. They had to give a presentation in front of the whole class. In the past, this task would have left him anxious and fearful. The thought of speaking in front of many people made his heart race. However, it was different this time. He could feel the weight of anxiety lifting as he reflected on the progress he had made. His heartbeat steadied as he prepared with his group. Brandon decided to take charge, but not in a commanding way. He invited everyone to share their thoughts on how to present effectively. The group agreed to highlight different strengths. Mia suggested creating visuals to go along with their ideas, and Jake even offered to speak first since he was very comfortable in front of others. Brandon listened and felt a rush of gratitude towards his teammates. Each voice mattered, and every idea strengthened their teamwork. As they practiced together, Brandon noticed how natural communication had become. His focus was not just on speaking well. It was about sharing and connecting. They established eye contact, smiled, and supported one another. Where once stood fear, there was now encouragement and enthusiasm. Whenever someone made a mistake during practice, they laughed it off and continued. They realized that supporting one another created a fun and safe space. Finally, the big day arrived. Standing in front of the class felt daunting, but Brandon breathed deeply and reminded himself of the techniques he learned. He spotted a few friendly faces in the audience, including Maya and some supportive classmates. It helped calm his nerves. As it was their turn to present, Brandon stepped to the front, feeling both excited and a little scared. When he began to speak, Brandon found his voice flowed out naturally. He shared ideas with clarity and enthusiasm. For moments, he would look out at the audience, making sure they felt engaged. It wasn't about delivering the perfect speech. It was about showing ideas and connecting with others. Each successful sentence fueled his courage. He recalled the challenges faced in the group and the effort they put in together, causing a soft pride to fill him. In that moment, he realized his emotional growth had come full circle. Would he have done this before all his learning? Most likely not. Brandon faced feelings of anxiety, but instead of crumbling, he used them to propel himself forward. Every feeling he once struggled with became a tool for building connections. He felt empowered, positive, and eager to share. When the presentation ended, the class erupted in applause. Brandon stood there beaming, heart light as air. His journey through the stresses of school had become one filled with strength and understanding. Through emotional intelligence, he realized challenges were not barriers. They were opportunities for growth. He learned how to embrace feelings, express ideas, and support others in ways that built harmony. This powerful experience marked a turning point for Brandon. He saw clearly now that emotional intelligence made a meaningful difference. With renewed hope and determination, he knew he could face any situation life threw his way. The path of self-discovery was only just beginning, and he was excited to continue growing, learning, and thriving. Falling action. After the big presentation, Brandon felt a wave of relief wash over him. He saw smiles around the classroom, and the loud applause echoed in his ears. As he exited the room, a warm feeling settled in his heart. All the efforts he had put into understanding himself and his emotions had paid off. But it was not just the applause that made him happy. It was the sense of connection he felt with his classmates. They had become a team, working together and lifting each other up. In that moment, Brandon recognized how much he had changed. Later that day, sitting at his desk, Brandon felt the need to reflect on everything that had happened. He opened his journal. The pages had seen many emotions, from anxiety to joy. Today, he began to write about his experiences and the lessons he learned. He started by recalling how he used to feel anxious before speaking in front of others. When he compared that feeling to today's success, he was amazed at how far he had come. Brandon wrote about emotional intelligence. He realized that being aware of his feelings had helped him respond better. Instead of reacting with fear or anger, he found ways to communicate calmly and cooperate. His ability to self-regulate emotions was growing. No longer did he feel trapped by strong feelings. He could name them and work through them. His relationships also felt different. Because of his new skills, Brandon had formed deeper connections with his classmates. He felt comfortable sharing ideas, and he noticed others were more open too. Empathy had played a big role. By understanding how others felt, he created bonds that encouraged trust. He also recognized Jake's growth. They shared conversations that now included kindness and support instead of tension. Each interaction became a piece of a beautiful puzzle they were all building together. In his reflection, Brandon considered his daily life. Simple situations no longer felt overwhelming. During small disagreements, he focused on expressing his needs calmly. Emotions that once spiraled out of control now followed a better path. He felt hope and strength each time he applied what he had learned. Brandon understood that emotional intelligence was a skill that he would continue developing. The more he reflected, the more excited he became about the future. The idea of tackling new challenges didn't scare him anymore. Instead, it thrilled him. He envisioned handling difficult exams with calmness, speaking up in class with confidence, and even helping his friends manage their feelings. Brandon wrote these thoughts down in his journal as if they would guide him forward. He wanted to embrace the new mindset he had created. Every challenge was an opportunity to grow. As he closed the journal, he felt light. The changing seasons around him mirrored the changes inside. Each day would bring its own feelings, and Brandon fully understood now that he was in control of how he responded. With renewed belief in himself, he realized that emotional growth was possible for everyone. He wanted to share this wisdom with others, showing them that they too could learn to navigate their feelings. The power to transform was within reach, waiting for anyone willing to take the first step. Brandon knew he was ready to embrace every upcoming journey with an open heart, confident in his ability to face the world and all its colors. In the weeks following the presentation, Brandon continued to practice emotional intelligence every day. He found joy in using the skills he had developed. Each morning, he spent time reflecting on his feelings and goals. During this quiet time, he wrote in his journal about the challenges he faced. He focused on self-awareness, spending moments understanding how different situations affected him emotionally. Knowing his triggers was a powerful step in his growth. At school, Brandon noticed new situations were arising. Sometimes, his classmates still disagreed with him or made fun of his ideas. But now, instead of feeling overwhelmed, he took a moment to breathe. He practiced emotional regulation by reminding himself that everyone's opinion mattered. This approach helped him respond with calmness rather than frustration. When someone disagreed, he would say, "Let's discuss this together," instead of taking it personally. Each time he handled a stressful moment with poise, he felt more empowered. One day during lunch, he saw a classmate, Eva, sitting alone. Remembering his own experiences of loneliness, Brandon felt moved to invite her over. He approached her and said, "Hey, would you like to sit with us?" With that simple act, Brandon practiced empathy and kindness, drawing from his journey. It reminded him how important it was to connect and reach out to others in need. As time went on, Brandon found creative ways to set boundaries. In group projects, he learned to express when he needed help or space. Instead of feeling guilty for taking time for himself, he embraced the idea that it was essential for maintaining balance. He started saying no when his plate became too full. This newfound confidence in declaring his needs made him feel strong. In the classroom, he began helping his classmates by teaching them about emotional intelligence. During discussions, he shared stories of successes and failures, using personal examples to connect. This approach helped others understand emotional regulation, too. He noticed his friends began to open up about their struggles. They shared techniques for handling stress and anxiety, forming a supportive community. This collaboration fueled his growth and meant profound impact. One particularly challenging day arose when a big exam was announced. Anxiety spread among his classmates, and he felt it too. Instead of letting fear take control, Brandon used the strategies he practiced. He scheduled extra study sessions, but he also reminded himself to relax. He leaned on his breathing exercises before the exam, recalling how far he had come. This mindset created balance where urgency once thrived. When the day of the exam finally arrived, Brandon walked into the classroom feeling prepared. He took a deep breath and smiled at his friends, who were a bit jittery. This moment wasn't just about the exam. It was about all the lessons he learned along the way. He felt empowered and unafraid to show kindness to others struggling around him. After the exam, Brandon took another moment to engage in self-reflection. He wrote about the experience in his journal. He celebrated his ability to navigate challenges while uplifting those around him. Building resilience meant recognizing his own emotions and the feelings of others. This synergy ushered in true balance in his personal and professional life. Through hard work and dedication, Brandon had become someone who inspired others. He knew the process of growth was ongoing, but his experience had shown him its value deeply. His journey with emotional intelligence had transformed him. The path was open ahead, allowing him to face every future challenge with strength and empathy, feeling equipped to make a difference in the world. Resolution. As the school year came to a close, Brandon felt a deep sense of empowerment. He took time to reflect on how much he had grown since the beginning of the year. The journey through emotional intelligence had truly changed his life. Brandon sat in his room one afternoon, thinking about the many challenges he had faced and how he learned to master his emotions. No longer was he a quiet, anxious student. He was now a confident individual who embraced his feelings and used them to connect with others. He held his journal in his hands, flipping through the pages filled with stories of growth. Each entry marked a change, a moment of clarity where he faced his fears or reached out to someone in need. Brandon smiled as he remembered the friendships he built. His connections with classmates, including Jake and Eva, were now filled with laughter and support. They had formed a study group, encouraging one another and sharing tips about emotional intelligence. One day, Brandon realized that this journey was not only about managing emotions, but also about using those feelings to create a fulfilling life. He understood that every sensation, even uncomfortable ones, carried an important lesson. When he felt anxious, he used that energy to prepare. When he felt joy, he shared it with others. Each emotion contributed to the overall balance he created in his life. With this understanding, Brandon knew he could face any challenge that came his way. As summer approached, his school held a special assembly to celebrate students' growth. Brandon felt butterflies in his stomach, but this time they were a flutter of excitement rather than anxiety. He reflected on what he wanted to say to his classmates. Emotional intelligence had taught him to make his voice heard. He planned to share his story about how recognizing feelings can transform lives. When it was his turn to speak, he approached the podium with confidence. His heart raced, but he took a deep breath to steady himself. Hi, everyone. I want to talk about emotional intelligence and how understanding our emotions can change us, he began. His voice rang clear and sincere, inviting everyone to listen. As he shared his experience with managing anxiety, connecting with others, and building resilience, the room felt alive. Classmates nodded, and he saw smiles grow on familiar faces. He emphasized that everyone has the power to make positive changes in their lives. He explained how their emotions could guide them toward happiness and fulfillment if they learned to respond to them wisely. After his speech, applause echoed through the auditorium. In that moment, Brandon felt truly empowered. He was no longer afraid to step into the spotlight. He had embraced his emotions and learned to use them to uplift others. As he stepped off the stage, classmates approached him, thanking him for his honesty. He felt a warm glow inside, knowing he inspired others to reflect on their emotional journeys. As summer rolled in, Brandon wasn't just looking forward to the break. He was excited about future opportunities. He decided to join a program focused on helping younger students learn about emotional intelligence. Brandon felt it was his chance to give back. His experiences paved the way for others to discover their strengths. With every passing day, Brandon saw how emotional intelligence opened doors to richer experiences. Learning and growing was a lifelong journey, but he felt ready to embrace it. He understood that every challenge held the potential for growth. There was no limit to what he could achieve when he stayed true to himself. Closing his journal one last time before summer, he felt a quiet sense of confidence. The journey of self-discovery had only just begun, and he was excited for all the experiences that lay ahead. A fulfilling life awaited him, guided by the wisdom he had gained. His heart was full, open, and ready for the adventures to come. As summer began, Brandon felt a growing desire to share his journey with others. He had discovered the importance of emotional intelligence, and he wanted to encourage other students to experience this change. With this new enthusiasm, he decided to organize a workshop about emotional awareness for his classmates. He wanted everyone to have the chance to learn what he had learned, that understanding emotions could lead to growth and deeper connections. In the days that followed, Brandon created a plan for the workshop. He gathered ideas from his journal, recalling the techniques that helped him develop emotional awareness. He decided to include practices like mindfulness exercises, journaling prompts, and group discussions about feelings. Brandon wanted his classmates to feel safe to express themselves and explore their emotions. On the day of the workshop, students filled the classroom, some curious and some a bit hesitant. Brandon welcomed everyone and started with a warm smile. He shared stories from his own life, opening up about moments of struggle and triumph. "We all face challenges with our feelings," he said, his voice steady. "But together, we can learn to understand ourselves better. He introduced a simple breathing exercise to help everyone relax. They inhaled slowly and then exhaled, letting go of stress. The room grew quieter as students focused on their breath. When Brandon asked them to share how they felt, hands went up across the room. Students shared excitement, nervousness, and even joy. It was a beautiful moment. He saw that everyone had emotions worth expressing. Next, Brandon introduced journaling as a tool. Writing helps us connect with our feelings, he explained. He suggested they write about a time they felt strong emotions and what they learned from it. The room filled with the sound of pencils against paper, and Brandon felt proud. They were venturing into their emotional worlds. Finally, Brandon encouraged group discussions. He divided the class into small groups and asked them to talk about their experiences and emotions. Each group engaged eagerly, and Brandon walked around to listen. He joined in conversations and offered encouragement. He noticed laughter and warmth in the room, a shared connection blossoming among classmates. At the end of the workshop, Brandon gathered everyone again. He expressed his gratitude for their openness. Emotional intelligence is a journey, he told them. It requires time, practice, and a lot of self-compassion. Remember, it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. He reminded them that they could lean on each other and continue this journey together. He also encouraged his classmates to take small steps in their everyday lives. Try a simple exercise. Each night, write down one thing you felt during the day. Reflect on how you handled it, he said. With practice, you will see how your emotions can guide you. Brandon knew that personal growth was continuous and that the most important part was to start somewhere. As the students left, Brandon felt a warmth in his heart. He had inspired others to begin the meaningful journey of self-discovery and emotional awareness. He realized that he, too, was still growing. Emotional intelligence was not just for him. It was a gift he could share with everyone willing to learn. In telling his story, Brandon proved that personal transformation is possible. He saw that every emotion can lead to positive change if we allow them the space to be felt. So, to anyone reading this, embrace your emotions. On your journey, take small steps each day, and remember that progress takes time. As you cultivate your emotional intelligence, you empower yourself to create a fulfilling life full of connection and joy. Keep going, stay curious, and watch how life unfolds in beautiful ways. You have the power to change your world.